Hi everyone. I have never done a live before, so this is actually pretty interesting. Um, I think I'm just processing a lot of thoughts today. I woke up and I'm like, definitely Sundays are feeling different now. So those of you who don't know, 2 weeks ago on Sunday, my daughter Erin was shot, and she was at an intersection in Houston, and she was in the car with a friend, her boyfriend, and they were at an intersection, and two other vehicles began to shoot at one another, and she was caught in the crossfire, and she was shot multiple times in her legs, and I don't know. Like, I think today feels different, right? Because the first couple of weeks, I was running and processing, and what does she need, and is she going to be okay, and does she have a doctor, or is it the right doctor? Should she stay at Bentop? Is it the right hospital? All these things, right? Is the house conducive to, her and her walker, and all these things? And so you're going 100 miles an hour and you're not really even thinking about anything else, except for me it was, is she okay, right? And people think like, oh, okay, she was shot in the legs, like, oh, that's not bad. No. it tore through an artery, and thank God she was just a few minutes. When I say a few, I mean like a few minutes away from the hospital. And and the fact that they were able to quickly get in motion and get her there is a whole nother thing, right? And so there's just so much gratitude, and I can't even begin to think about, because we let our children leave the house and all these things, and we don't really give it a second thought sometimes. Honestly, she left the house that day and I was just kind of like, okay, bye. Like, I'll see you in a couple of hours. And to think, that life just completely changed that quickly. So thank God she did not bleed out, and she was able to get to the hospital. But there's been 2 surgeries thus far, and initially they were saying 3 or 4 surgeries, and so we thank God for that as well. But she's still working to regain mobility in her legs and her foot. It's the right foot. It tore through both legs, but the right leg suffered the most damage, right? So every milestone, every day is a new win, right? So she's like, oh, Mom, I'm walking on my own. Oh, Mom, like I was able to take a few steps. And oh, Mom, I went up the stairs. And so I think I've been overwhelmed with everyone that has just like supported us and looked out for us, and like it's funny because people will be like, oh, you don't really have any family in Houston besides your sister, but it's been so evident that we do. We have quite a village, and the village just showed out. And I'm grateful because I didn't even have, I was just more so concerned with Erin, right? And I didn't really have a chance to like worry about, oh, okay, how are my parents going to get here? How, who's going to feed them? Who's cooking? Who's, none of that. And so, that has been an absolute blessing because we haven't had to worry about any of those things. Everyone just kind of kicked into action and, brought over meals and, worked with the hospitals. I've had friends that were doctors that had privileges at both of the hospitals she was at, and, were able to go and check in on her, which was a whole nother factor, right? Because I couldn't check in on her. I couldn't be there to advocate for my child. And so, this COVID thing, we take for granted like little things like that, right? So who's going to be there to make sure that the doctor, is doing right by her, right? Who's going to be there to make sure that, they're giving her the right meds and all of those things, right? And so the first few weeks is just, gratitude, extreme gratitude. And I still feel that for every single person. And it's crazy because I can't even say every name, like every text message, every email, every basket. I mean, we had so many flowers here, so many deliveries. I don't know who people thought we were over here. Sorors from across the country, just sending Erin notes and letters of encouragement and, lifting her up. And I think that has helped me because, then I'm able to pour into her. And she's even blessed me through this whole thing, just watching how she's handled it with such grace and such courage. And, I think, I'm like, God, okay, this is horrible and you want to protect your child from everything, but she's going to have her own testimony. She's going to have her own relationship with God. She's going to have her own reasons as to why she knows that she can call on him and he will answer. And so as much as I want to shield her from all the pain and the hurt and all these things, I know that I can see his hand even in this particular situation. Even though she was wrong place, wrong time, she still was right place, right time. She still was just a few minutes away from the hospital and they were able to get her there. And the doctor and the nurses, prayed with me. And, just those little things where God just continued to show up all the time. Even the police officers, like, we're in the middle of, a whole civil rights movement. That's a whole nother conversation. But they were so kind and so thoughtful and creative in the ways that they tried to make sure that, I felt okay, that I felt that my baby was being cared for. We stood outside of the hospital for probably, Fontaine and I, for maybe 6 hours or so. The night she was shot, and we couldn't go in. So they call you and they say, hey, your daughter's been shot, but we don't have any visitation. Okay. So, we're literally down there in the rain, standing and waiting to find out, does she need surgery? What's going to happen? Did she bleed out? Is she getting the medicine? What's happening? In the meantime, there's tons of other people pulling up shot. It's a whole crime scene in front of the hospital, which, because everyone had to drive themselves that was involved in this incident. So we have, the guys that were shooting at each other. And then we have the car that, my daughter was in. And so, that's a whole dynamic because we have the family of those guys saying, we're so sorry. We know that your daughter, she ain't about that life. She is not that type of kid at all. And so that's the other part of this. Like, you have your kid in a certain zip code and private schools and, she's exposed to this and that. And the truth is that you can't protect them from everything. So now today I am like, but somebody shot my daughter. And, we are in the middle of having a very active discussion on Black Lives Matter. And they absolutely do. And I believe that wholeheartedly. And I don't think that, those who have taken an oath to serve and protect us, I think that's a whole different conversation. Yes, they should absolutely, treat us like human beings and be thoughtful in how they serve our communities. But I'm just having an issue today because my daughter got shot. And 9 times out of 10, it was somebody who looked just like her. And so, her dad and I have been struggling because it's like, okay, when do we talk about that piece? Because as a community, we're not holding each other accountable. We are not, pulling our cousins or our brother's coattail and saying, hey, because at the end of the day, people are getting hurt. Like, it could have been a whole different situation where she never would be able to walk again, right? It could have been where, the day before we were talking about the 8-year-old who actually died in the mall in Birmingham, in the Galleria, 8 years old. You know, so we could have been just coming off of a funeral. I mean, it could have been it could have been so many other variations of this scenario. And I truly thank God, and I'm so grateful. But at the same time, I'm like, but why? You know, and even, you know, I have detectives coming in and out of the house and talking to us, and identifications and all this stuff, but they're like, no, people won't work with us, people won't tell us. You know, we're not holding each other accountable for when we say Black Lives Matter. You know, nobody wants to talk, no one cares. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I called Kentucky. I sent emails for Breonna Taylor's, you know, for that situation, and I think it's absolutely, like, the cause is right. The time is now, yes. But when's the last time we made a call to the police station for things that are happening in our own communities against each other? Anybody? I mean, and I'm guilty myself. Like, I've never really thought about, I mean, it's touched me in a totally different way, but, you know, when have we called and turned someone in who was, you know, terrorizing our own communities? Because there's some communities don't even allow you to bring this mess. Like, you know, so when do we hold each other accountable, and why do we allow it to happen and continue to happen in our communities without holding each other accountable? That's just my thought today. Like, I don't know the answer, and I don't know when we're going to have that discussion. I just know that, you know, my daughter could very much so permanently have a limp. And again, it could be so much worse. And so, you know, I'm not complaining, but I'm saying, for what? You know, she's a straight A student. She doesn't bother anybody. She's home from college. She should be able to hang out. It was her 19th birthday. And, like, at this point, like, I'm scared to let her back out the house. We don't live in a bad area whatsoever. The area that she was shot in wasn't a bad area. But, you know, I think that that's the part of the discussion I'm ready to have. Because, yes, Black lives do matter. And if they do matter, then they have to matter to us. And we have to hold each other accountable. And, you know, there's only so much I can say in this forum, because I'm like, we could have company. That's fine. But that's the discussion, because it wasn't them who shot my daughter. It was us. And it was us keeping our foolishness. And we need to be willing to confront us. Like, we can march in the streets, we can hold other people accountable, but we need to hold ourselves accountable. And that's all. Erin is doing well. She's napping. Again, thank you, everyone. All the meals, like, yes, I've worked out twice today because, so thank you, everyone, because at the same time that I'm angry and I'm hurt and I'm disappointed in us, like, the flip side of this is so we've been showered with so much love and grace through this whole ordeal that it's hard for me to be angry, right? It's hard for me to stay angry because there's just so many wonderful people reaching out, supporting, loving on us. But we got work to do. And, you know, I don't know, even I'm still processing what my piece of that is, you know, because we serve our community, we volunteer, we do things all the time. You know, do I need to, you know, be in schools more? Like, do I need to come up with I don't know what that is yet. But I do know that it starts with us holding, okay, my sister's crazy. Holding each other accountable and being willing to speak up, even when it's our own family member, even when it's our own cousin. if it's foolish, it's foolish. And, you know, it's one thing if people want to get out on the street and play Wild Wild West, in, you know, in the middle of the jungle. I don't know. But when we start to have children, 8 years old, babies, Chicago, the baby was 1 month old. Like, come on, guys. Really? So that's all I got. And I probably won't ever do a live again. I don't know. But I just had to share that because it's really hurtful to know that, you know, that I would be remiss not to say anything, right? So we say so much about everything else. This is very much so a conversation that needs to be had because, again, she wasn't shot by police officers. She was shot by someone in and around the community. And one young man even said, like, "Oh, I'm sorry, little mama, that wasn't for you." Yeah, okay, she's learning to walk again. Like, that was comforting. So, you know, I'm willing to march the streets. I'm willing to have that discussion. I'm willing to go to schools. I don't know, whatever that is. And I know that Erin is getting to that place as well. And you know, it's just funny how everything comes together because, you know, I'm not sure if she wants this to be her platform. I'm not sure, you know, but she's become very vocal about it. And in a way that, you know, I'm seeing, you know, that growth and that maturity in her. And if she wants to address it, she'll address it. But everybody, because I don't see how we're asking people to take us seriously right now. Yeah, I mean, I'll wear a shirt, okay, but yeah, we got work to do, family. And so let's have that discussion. Aw, my patient is hobbling in. Do you want to say hi? I'm alive. My patient is hobbling. Hi. Yeah, she's coming up from her nap. So, all right, guys, have a blessed and awesome Sunday. Let's think about that, though. When we start to talk about Black Lives Matter, let's think about furthering that discussion because I think it needs to be all-encompassing. All right, love you guys. Great day.